listening? Damn. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Damn Podcast. This is an emergency episode of the Damn Podcast. It is Saturday. Beavers just lost the Civil War last night, and Coach Smith has announced he is leaving for Michigan State. Jake and I wanted to get here, get on. We have no plan of attack here. We are going to just talk through things. We value your comments here, and let's just talk this through. What we know, what we knew, and we'll go through kind of what's next for this Oregon State program. And, first and foremost, players, my heart goes out to you and your families. Never easy. This is not easy for fans who have, kind of put their heart and soul. And it's been a really rough 3 or 4 months for Oregon State. And it just kind of seems that things are not clicking and working out as everyone had hoped. But Jake, you were in Eugene yesterday. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. I just got back about an hour ago and hopped right on the pod.
Yeah, Jake was helping me get we'd started the hot board yesterday, and we got it ready to go. I think first things first, do you think all this noise in the background had an impact in the game yesterday?
Yeah, I definitely do. This did not look like an Oregon State team that we've come to expect to see. I thought offensively, it was very pedestrian effort. The run game was the worst it's ever been. I do feel like the players were kind of hearing that noise. Maybe they already knew he was gone, and didn't really play as hard as they typically would, with the feeling of having a coach that essentially quit on them.
Yeah, no, I think let's go back even a couple more days. Because I think this whole thing was handled so poorly by Coach Smith. We can talk about why he left and wanting security and such. And I get that. I get that. Oregon State does not have a schedule. They do not have a conference home. But when he went on Canzano earlier in the week, it became very evident that there was something more to the story there. This is a team, like I said, this is a team that's been kind of in a little bit, it's felt like a dark cloud has been hanging over this since August when it was announced that Oregon State and Washington State did not have a home. So Coach Smith leaves. Like I said, it is yet to be decided which coaches he's taking with. I would imagine quite a few. I
saw a report that the top 3 priorities for Coach Smith at Michigan State to bring over are Trent Bray, Jim Halchek, and Brian Wozniak.
The 3 that Oregon State would actually like to keep. Yeah.
The 3 most important in my mind.
Yeah, those are. I mean, those.
Wozniak is from the Midwest. He played at Wisconsin. I could very easily see him heading over pretty soon.
Yeah.
It will be interesting to see how many coaches leave before, and just see a comment. Andrew Brinson just decommitted already.
Yeah.
3-star DB from Florida. So it's been 2 hours and we're already seeing, player movement.
Yeah. So this is what the timeline is for those wondering. Okay. So transfer portal opens December 4th, which is a week from Monday, and signing day is not November 4th, December 4th. And the signing day is December 20th. Oregon State has so many things they have to get taken care of here. I mean, to try to even stop the bleeding right now, we are going to see decommitments. We are going to see the transfer portal, I have a feeling, light up. I think it's imperative that a interim coach is named. Now, we had heard from a player's family member in the lodge at Beaver Blitz that Trent Bray was named interim, although I reached out to Oregon State officials and they said nobody has been named yet. I would have hoped that Scott Barnes would have had a little more, maybe a little better plan. He at least had 24 hours and most likely more notice than that this was happening. It is just it's a bad situation all the way around. So Jake, what do you think is top priority right now? I mean, which wound do you try to stop the bleeding first?
Yeah, I mean, there are numerous. There's players leaving, recruits decommitting, coaches leaving. But at this point, I feel like the first step is establishing an interim head coach. To me, that should be announced already. To have no one really leading the program right now is an issue. And if we get, it's to me, Oregon State needs to name someone, whether that's Coach M, Trent Bray, even a Mike Riley, just someone to kind of stop the bleeding, and just kind of give these kids some kind of continuity.
Yeah, they need something right now because this is, like I said, the players need some. There's a bowl game too, and it'll be interesting to see if Oregon State competes in the bowl game because it'll be interesting to see what they have going on. We immediately released the Beaver Blitz hot board. Now this will continually change. This is the first iteration of such, just kind of looking at names that maybe make some sense for Scott Barnes to look and reach out to. But if Oregon State is able to keep, Trent Bray has mentioned that he does not want to be a head coach.
Yes.
But if Oregon State is able to somehow keep him and elevate him to head coach, and he's agreeable, do you like that move, even though he has no head coaching experience?
I do like it if Oregon State gets, some more experienced guys who have head coaching experience on staff. I do feel like, for the most part, it will be better to have somebody who, has experience really running a program that Trent doesn't have. We saw that when Jonathan was first hired, he brought in Coach Riley for a few months until Coach Riley left. But he had that guy that's done it before, and I don't know who that guy would necessarily be. But I feel like having a assistant on staff that has head coaching experience would be huge for Trent Bray. If Trent does become head coach, I don't really think Trent wants to be a head coach right now. It's kind of everything we've heard. But if I'm Scott Barnes, he's my number one guy, quite frankly.
Yeah. Okay. How confident how confident in Scott Barnes are you right now?
Not very at the moment. At this point, it's been 4 months. We've had time not only to find a home, which isn't necessarily Bray's or Scott Barnes' fault, but there has been a lack of movement, really. And for Coach Smith to leave right now, it's the worst possible time. And as an athletic director, it is your job to prevent these things from happening.
Yeah. That's what gets me. And I get that there's a lot going on behind the scenes with this whole conference and the legal battle. But we've been hearing that the schedule was going to be released even a couple weeks ago. I had even heard that potentially Barnes was ready to announce yesterday morning before the Civil War, that Smith's new deal and a schedule, and that got pushed back again.
Yeah.
We have not been let know what is the holdup with the schedule. I think it's still trying to lock up. I think Oregon trying to change the Boise State game might be the
Texas
last
Tech
hurdle.
Is another one I've seen.
Yeah, and that is another one.
Another thing I feel like is kind of underlooked is Scott Barnes. He's shown an ability to hire good coaches. If you look at his tenure here, he's hired Jonathan Smith, who he brought Oregon State football back to relevancy, quite frankly. Coach Canham, who's done fantastic as the coach of the baseball team and should have a top 5 team in the country this year. The men's soccer coach, just dealing with multiple new hires, and for the most part, they have been successful. So I do feel like Barnes is going to find the right guy, but I do also think this whole issue could have been prevented and quite frankly should have been.
Yeah, I mean, as an AD, you always have a short list of guys that you're ready to reach out to. So hopefully he has that short list and is already working the phones there, because what Oregon State does not have right now is a luxury of time. Like I mentioned, I mean, Oregon State is gushing blood right now and needs to stop the bleeding on several fronts, whether that be recruits, whether that be the current roster. There's a lot going on. Okay, so portal opens on a week from Monday. Do you think this is a mass exodus?
At this point, I do. We have seen historically when coaches leave, or maybe not historically, but recently, once the transfer portal really got blown up into what it is now, when a coach leaves, you do see a lot of players leave. And usually the whole coaching staff follows. Not saying that'll happen this time, but I would imagine we are going to see a lot of players leave, whether those are all contributors necessarily or backups. I do feel like Oregon State is going to take a huge hit, and I also feel like our next team next year is going to be full of guys from the transfer portal. I think at this
Well,
point,
I don't think they're going to lose everybody though. That's just it.
I don't think
The
they will
guys that
either.
are lower on that aren't on the depth chart or not really contributors, they have nowhere else to go.
Yeah,
They stick. It's the guys that that are you have lined up ready to go that you worry about leaving.
like Chiles's and Martinez's. Those are the ones we really don't want to see leave. But at the moment, who really knows? Because they are talented enough players. They are future NFL players, and they are going to go where they get the best shot to make the NFL. And at this point, with the uncertainty here, that might not necessarily be Oregon State, which it's quite unfortunate. I mean,
yeah. So T. Rice says, elevate Bray, keep Martinez and Childs, and build off them. That might be, the best case if you can keep somebody, keep a current member of the staff and build around them.
yeah, that it really is. It is almost uncharted territory.
Yeah.
For Oregon State in this day and age of college football, with the transfer portal and all these other factors, Oregon State hasn't experienced a coaching search in 6 years, 7 years now. And it is brand new. This is a new experience, and no one really knows what is going to happen yet. I feel like there will be some more, just a more clear outlook of the future in the next 24 to 48 hours. But I do expect next Monday, December 4th, I think that's when the portal opens.
Yeah.
Expect that to be a busy day for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna, and then like I said, I just saw Brandon Tolis tweeted that God will lead him to the right spot. Something on Twitter.
Oh, did he?
Has not said he's decommitting, but so okay, so we have our hot board. Let's just dive into the hot board, because there's some interesting names. You and I were talking about it. Here, actually, this is an interesting one too. Justin Wilcox, down at Cal. Do you?
My thing with Wilcox is if he brings Jake Spavital, their offensive coordinator, I like that. I think Jake Spavital is a great offensive coordinator. He coached Johnny Manziel, I believe, at Texas A&M for a little bit. And if we do get that, having Wilcox to be a great defensive coach would be huge. But again, with Wilcox, he didn't take the Oregon job where he played.
Yeah.
So I would be very surprised. To me, that's a huge. I would put that at a less than 1% chance.
Cal does have Cal maybe is in a slightly better position as far as they have a conference, but I would say they are in almost worse standing financially. That they're getting a 30% cut. They're going to have to travel across the country, and they have a huge debt on the stadium retrofit they did. So it is not a pretty picture for Cal financially. I would actually say that Oregon State's in, like I said, a better spot financially than Cal is. But a couple names. The first name that people keep bringing up is Mike Riley. He lives in Corvallis, and that would not be a full-time coach, or it would be an interim basis. People keep bringing his name up. What are your thoughts on that? Just for through the bowl game kind of thing.
I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to that. Don't necessarily want to see him as a head coach. Wouldn't mind seeing him on staff or in like a special assistant role to whoever the interim head coach may be. I do feel like it'll be that would be helpful. It would help the continuity. It would get and it'd also give Riley like one last ride at Oregon State too, which I think would make for a cool story. But I would not be opposed to him being our at least involved
game.
with the program
Yeah.
during the bowl game.
So, okay.
Host the bowl game? Not
Yeah,
necessarily.
yeah.
We'll
Just
don't know.
maybe somebody to try to help kind of stable the ship for a month. Okay, so let's go through our hot board. Coach Bray is one of the tops of the hot board that we have right now. I think he has to be your number one that you talk to. Brent Brennan at San Jose State. I've already seen so many people say no to Brennan. What I do like, there's a couple things I like about Brennan. A, he has ties here and he has a great culture. You wouldn't lose the cultural aspect that Coach Smith has built because Brennan would bring that in spades. In fact, I'd almost say Brennan maybe has a better culture than Smith in some regards. But it's not, and I also think it would help bring back, not that Brandon Cooks or Marcus Wheaton or some of these guys have not been have they not left the program, but I think he gets them more involved because those guys have super strong still to this day relationships with Coach Brennan. What are your pluses and minuses there?
Yeah, Brent Brennan may not be the sexiest name out there. He may not be the coordinator of an offense that puts up 50 points a game, but he is a good football coach. It is very tough to win in San Jose State, and he's been one of the few coaches recently that has experienced success there. I think he's a good coach. Now, recruiting-wise, I don't necessarily know how much that moves the needle. And he does kind of remind me like a more of a Mike Riley type guy where he's I don't know, just not necessarily super appealing for high school kids to play for. I do think he's a great coach and a great builder of men, but doesn't necessarily turn the needle too much in regards to recruiting.
Okay, let's go continuing the Mountain West. Let's look at a couple more names there. Jeff Tedford is one that one's an intriguing one.
To me, this is Tedford is a great coach. He's had a ton of success on the West Coast, whether that's as an offensive coordinator at Oregon in the 2000s or the early 2000s to Cal, where he's been really the only coach in the last 30 years to have a ton of success, or 20 years at least, to have a lot of success there. He did really, really good things at Cal. Then went to Fresno State and turned that program around. The one concern here is his health issues. He did retire for 2-3 years right after the 2019 season, came back to Fresno after Kalen DeBoer took the Washington job. But I do feel like Tedford would be a good hire to stabilize the ship. He wouldn't be necessarily our coach in 5 years. In fact, I think he would be a coach for maybe maximum 3 seasons. But he is a good football coach, and he's proven the ability to win really everywhere he's gone. He had success at Cal, Fresno State, and I think Tedford would be a good hire, quite frankly.
Okay, Barry Odom at UNLV.
Yeah, this is a guy who really he was the head coach at Missouri about from 2015 to 2018, I think. Didn't experience a whole ton of success there. Got fired. Went to Arkansas as defensive coordinator, and then he went to UNLV as their head coach this last offseason and really just transformed them. This was a team that was really the bottom of the Mountain West. They hadn't even hit a bowl game since 2013, and in his first year, he completely turned around his program. He's a great defensive coach, and they went from, I believe they were, I want to say 4-8 last year, 3-9 to 9-2. If they win today, they're in the Mountain West Championship, which just speaks to how fast of a turnaround that says something about a coach. Great coach. They beat a Power 5 team, I think. They beat Vanderbilt, and if I remember correctly, they destroyed them. I think Odom would be a good hire. However, the one knack on him is he doesn't have any Pacific Northwest ties, and he did struggle at the Power 5 level before with the program that has more real resources than Oregon State does.
Yeah, and you're talking about like ties to the program and things too, and we have some comments about looking for someone that has some Northwest ties. But I think if there's one thing that Scott Barnes has done is he's shown too a tendency to maybe look toward the alumni to come in and lead it. I mean, we saw that with Canham. This one doesn't move my needle. This one doesn't excite me, and I know he has a great offense. But Ryan Grubb, offensive coordinator at Washington, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, Grubb is the one knack on him is he hasn't been a head coach before. Everywhere he's been, Kalen DeBoer's been, and yeah, their offenses have been successful. But is that a Grubb aspect of it, or is it the Kalen DeBoer aspect?
DeBoer
and
aspect.
I tend to go to Kalen DeBoer. Another thing with Ryan Grubb is Alabama offered him a lot of money to go be their offensive coordinator, and he turned it down. And I really don't. I mean, at this point, I think the Alabama offensive coordinator job would be much more appealing than the head coaching job of a school that doesn't have a home. But his offenses do produce a ton. They were like that at Fresno State with Jake Haener. Now at Washington with Michael Penix, they put up a ton of points. And one of the more exciting offenses to watch as well.
Okay, now this one, I hadn't thought of this one, and you are the one that actually, bounced this one off. And it's intriguing to me. I think he's young, but he does have Northwest ties. Kirby Moore, currently the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach at Missouri.
Yeah, there's a reason Missouri's kind of flipped the switch from being a 5-7, 6-6 program to a top 10 team. And I think it's Kirby Moore. He was great at Fresno as an offensive coordinator under Jeff Hedberg, and goes to Missouri and completely transforms their offense, turns them into a top 10 team in the country. He's a young coach who the players will want to play for and really relate with. And this may not be the biggest name, but I think it'd be a really good hire. Obviously, the Moore family can coach. His brother Kellen's an offensive coordinator in the NFL. And I would not be opposed to this hire at all. With Moore, he's a young guy. I mean, I remember watching him play in college, and I'm 20, so he's a young guy. But I feel like he would be a good hire for recruiting and offense. He would need to make a good defensive coordinator hire. Now, if we get Kirby Moore as our head coach and Trent Bray as our defensive coordinator to stay, that's a little more appealing to me.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's that would actually, and here's Travis Maurer. I am with BK. Go after Wilcox. Dude is from Junction City. Wants to come home. Keep Bray and Mihalacek if you can. Lansing, Michigan blows.
Yeah.
I've never been to East Lansing, but it's really not on my hotspot destinations. Which I am interested to see how Smith handles. He doesn't like dealing with the media here. I don't know how he's going to all the media.
I'm sure it's going to be bigger.
It's going to be a lot bigger, and he's not going to be able to get by with a Monday presser and no coach's show and everything else that he's been getting away with at Oregon State. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at right now. The next 48 hours is crucial, I think, for Barnes to name an interim coach at the very least.
Yeah.
And then Jake and I and all of our sources are keeping our ears to the ground, have lots of updates as we get them in the Lodge at Beaver Blitz. It's actually like perfect timing for fans. If you're not a member of Beaver Blitz, you'll want to be in the Lodge. And we're currently offering our Black Friday 75% off special. So get your popcorn ready, because it's not going to be a dull month of December or even into the next spring. So get your membership, $26.85, get you a full year. It works out to $224 a month. And we'll be bringing you all the latest inside info as we hear it. That'll go into the Lodge. Any other comments? I'm just going through the comments.
You got an important comment right there from Hilly Skolton. I don't know if that's off Twitter but Smith decision doesn't affect mine, according to Damian Martinez.
Okay, that's huge.
Right here, Nick Daskell from the Oregonian just said he is coming back.
Okay, that's huge news.
Huge news for Oregon State.
Okay, and I want to say that's like legit and that's awesome. What I am concerned about is what happens when somebody comes and throws a big bag of NIL cash his way.
Yeah, I mean
that's the whole other wild card here. Is the NIL and what's going to happen there. So I know there's been a lot of reactions, and I can't even say that this is probably, aside from that day in August where the whole conference fell apart, this is pretty bad for Oregon State. And I know we've talked about it. We've talked about it in the podcast that, I didn't see this Michigan State job as a really good job. Michigan State fans have had some trolls telling me that I'm ridiculous, that it's a top 10 job, and I don't agree. But I do think I said it would speak volumes if Coach Smith left for this job, especially with all the jobs that will be opening up in the next week or so.
There's going to be a ton of movement over the next week.
Yeah, the next week or so is going to be huge. So that it tells me it speaks volumes to where this whole rebuild is. Here's somebody. Can you dig into what it takes to get Chris Peterson for our next coach? I don't think he wants to coach.
That's going to happen. Chris Peterson has zero desire. He hates recruiting, and that's what Oregon State really needs the most right now.
Yeah, it's going to take recruiting. It's going to take someone that's willing to roll up their sleeves, because honestly, this was probably timing-wise and news-wise probably the worst scenario that Oregon State could face right now. It's just piled on top of the ongoing litigation and the no conference home, and there's a lot. So I don't have a whole lot of super positives. I do have Oregon State will be playing football next year.
and still going to a bowl game.
And going to a bowl game. So
All-Day Bowl, I would imagine, or the Alamo Bowl, or even the Sun Bowl. Hopefully not the Sun Bowl.
Here's someone. Does this mean that Smith will not be taking the Beavers to the bowl game? No, Coach Smith will be done. He is no longer coaching the team. Dave Aranda is a name that was thrown out there. He's at Baylor.
I don't think he'll be at Baylor after tomorrow.
Frankly. I mean, that's just it. There's a lot of jobs too that are going to be coming open. Let's see. Let's see if there's any. We're taking your comments right now. Didn't Peterson leave because of the stress? Yeah, OSU would be way more stressful. I agree, Derek. A lot going on.
Baseball, anywhere with the players of baseball.
So yes, we just wanted to jump on here and get your comments and kind of tell you what things stand right now. But yes, so just keep your eyes the next couple days for an interim coach to be named. Like I said, I'm really surprised that wasn't done at the meeting, the team meeting today. That surprises me that Scott Barnes did not name a interim head coach. But keep your eyes open, and the days that you really need to look for is December 4th for the portal, and then signing day on the 20th. Jake has already started reaching out to recruits. We are reaching out to all of our contacts across the 24/7 Sports Network, and we'll keep you posted with everything that we hear. But Jake, hey, thanks for jumping on.
Of course.
And again, keep following Jake. He's at Hedberg Jake on Twitter. I'm at Angie Machado 1. And you can find all of our work at Beaver Blitz. Oh, there's lots of new.
Les Miles. Maybe an interesting one.
Wasn't he like rumored to be like in the mix? Scott Barnes already passed on him once.
I don't really see Les Miles being a cultural fit for Corvallis either, quite frankly.
I mean, that's just it. You don't. If there's one thing Gary Anderson taught us, is that team culture is so important. Yeah. And so
not even team culture. I just don't feel like he fits really the Pacific Northwest as a coach.
Yeah. So nope, it's going to be interesting, and it will not be a dull moment. We've got you covered at beaverblitz.com, and Jake and I'll be back in the next couple days for another episode of our normal time of the Damn Podcast.